welcome back to the Open Bible, Open Life podcast. I'm Kyle Mercer, and I'm excited about the guests that I have with me today, Shelby and Stephen. Welcome to the podcast.
So glad to be here.
That's great.
Shelby, this is your first time on the podcast?
Yes, it is.
Do you listen to the podcast?
I do.
So a many-time listener, first-time guest.
I guess that's the way to describe it.
And you are a many-time listener, or maybe not that much of a listener, but many times of a guest.
Both and.
That's it, both and. Well, guys, okay, so we're here today to talk about something that I'm very excited about that we've been doing now for a handful of years. We'll get into all details. We're going to talk about the residency, which fits under the larger picture of leadership development, which we may or may not get into.
Sure.
I want to talk about the residency, and I want to start. Normally, I pass it to you guys, but I can remember when Pastor Caleb Duvik, who was one of your, can I say your nearest and dearest friend?
You can, because I can.
Yeah, your nearest and your dearest friend in Southern Seminary. He came to us. This often happens behind the scenes, guys. You know this, but our listeners may not. Caleb will often come to us, and he is like the, in the best sense of the word, like when I say us, the staff, or me and Dave, and he's much like a mother in a family. He's like, he feels the immediate next need.
Sure.
You know, he's like, you may not know this yet. You're out there. I'm in the home. I'm feeling this. And he said, we really need to do a residency. We need to do a residency program. We didn't know at the time how many years. We'll get into that. We didn't know all that it would be. We didn't even know who would lead it at the time, although in the back of his mind, he always had Pastor Stephen Lawrence in his mind. But he came to us and said, hey, we need to do this residency. And we started out with 2 residents, if you guys remember.
Oh, yeah.
And half of them made it through. So we had a 50% graduation rate. No, the gentleman who didn't make it through because he took a job as a youth pastor, and we've got a great relationship with him. But Nathan Milson comes in. Anyway, so it begins to grow, and I want to start asking you guys some questions. And then we begin to say, you know what, I think this is going to be bigger than just something that Caleb or another staff person can do on the side. This is going to need full-time, full attention from somebody. And that's when I meet you. So tell us, Stephen, let's start with you. How do you get to Two Cities Church? Where are you beforehand? What is God doing in your life? Because I know this story, but God's doing a couple things in your life as you're a senior pastor somewhere else. And how does that conversation go with Caleb? How do you get here?
Sure. I was in ministry in Nashville. So Nashville, Tennessee is close to our hometown. We'll just call it our hometown. Yeah. So I was in ministry in and around that for the majority of my adult and pastoral life.
Growing up right around Nashville.
That's right.
Did you ever see Taylor Swift in person?
No. Okay. But she went to our rival high school.
Okay.
And a lot of overlaps and whatever.
Okay.
No, I'm not the Stephen of her early song. What could have been.
Good. We wanted to clarify that for our viewers. Yes.
What could have been. But anyway, so I was pastoring around Nashville. I kept trying to get Caleb to come join me. So I talked to him a handful of times.
Okay, this is the first time I'm hearing this story.
I was like a handful of times, like, hey, man, what if we created this position, or what if you just never worked out? He obviously was on part of the launch team at Two Cities, and so I was aware of and praying with him for the church from the beginning. And during that time, I had been doing my PhD work. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were asking me, what are you going to do with that? I mean, you're just a pastor. Do you plan to teach? I'm like, I don't really plan to teach in a school. I just know teaching is going to be part of what I do.
And your PhD is in?
Theology.
Theology, yeah.
Yeah. So teaching is going to be something I do somewhere in some shape, form, or fashion. And so I was kind of walking forward. And sometimes in life it happens. It certainly did there, where I felt like kind of the Wizard of Oz when the weatherman changes. It's like, I don't know what's coming, Lord, but I know the weather's changed. Mm-hmm. And toward the end of my degree, I felt that. And I was actually, I don't know if I've told anybody this, so here we go.
Here we go.
I was on a mission trip to Indonesia, teaching training pastors there. I was in Kuala Lumpur on the way back, and somehow I got Wi-Fi or whatever it was. My phone rang. It was Caleb. I saw his name on my phone, and I thought, he's going to talk to me about a job at Two Cities Church, and I'm going to take it.
Wow.
And I picked up the phone, and that was our first conversation.
Wow. What did he say to you?
He said, hey, man.
And then after that.
That's right. We're starting a residency program, and I want you to lead it.
Wow. I remember meeting you. I remember you on my back deck talking. I remember the whole process, you coming here. When did you get here?
I got here in, I think, 2021, I think it was.
Right around there.
Because we had that first conversation like right when COVID was breaking out.
Yeah.
Right when. So legit, like January of COVID year, I had that initial conversation in KL with Pastor Caleb. And then when I got home, he's like, hey, by the way, we may have to pump the brakes and see how this whole thing shakes out.
Yes.
So I had that initial excitement, like, Lord, this is next. And then, well, this may not happen.
Yes.
But then we went from January, and then I came on that next year, next February.
And Shelby, I can't remember. Were you part of our second class?
Yes.
Okay, so that second class, our first class was 2. Our second class was like 10?
11, I think, was the final number.
Yes.
Okay, so talk about how you get here. I know you've had a couple jobs in this city. You worked at the former PIU.
Yep.
Before it was Piedmont Bible.
Yep.
Which it's now Carolina.
Yes.
So there's a lot of names there. Okay. So you were there. You were also on a billboard in our city.
I was.
Tell us about this story. How do you end up on a billboard in Winston-Salem?
So it's during COVID and you have very limited resources and we need to do marketing. And they're like, look, you look professional. You can walk up the stairs. And so I was walking up the stairs, and that is me showing that I'm going somewhere in life, looking professional for Carolina University.
And that was the same moment you were called to the residency.
That's right.
Yes. In that moment, I was like, this is where it's
No, but so your brother, who many will recognize, Pastor Nate, is Nate Young, is here. And so you move here. How do you end up going from working other jobs to how long were you in our church before the residency? And then how did all this unfold?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So I obviously knew of Two Cities. Nate was part of like the launch team. And I remember coming and visiting in 2016 when they were moving down here, and always knew that the Lord was going to call me to Winston-Salem. It was just the timing. Graduated from college and was given a job as a camp director. Did that for 3 years. And that was kind of ministry. I knew it was with women. So discipling and raising up counselors and training and leadership development. But always like didn't feel quite right. So was also doing Young Life and was like, Lord, are you calling me to do Young Life? Again, just never the right fit. And then until 2020, Lord said, it's time to move. The job opened up at Carolina. I moved here 2 weeks, then later COVID hit. So
COVID's a part of all of our stories,
Yes.
isn't it? Go ahead.
I mean, and so, yeah, the world kind of stopped in that moment, but was part of our one-time Zoom weekender. Was fabulous.
Okay.
But
I remember this.
Yeah. Really appreciated, though, like getting involved in the church, because that was a whole season of like, I need to be in community. I want to serve. We're all part. How does this work? And did that, and then got involved in student ministry. And Justin Mormon came up to me and said, you need to do the residency. Prayed about it, talked with Caleb, was on board. And then funny enough, I don't know if I've ever told you this, Stephen, and then they showed like a video of Stephen coming to take over leadership development. And I went, I didn't sign up to work with this guy. I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
She still feels that way.
Yes.
But then, so yeah, I was part of that second class. That was Stephen's first class. And
Yes.
haven't obviously left.
Now, I realize that as we're having this conversation, we have not really discussed what the residency is. My bad. We've talked about it in nebulous and ambiguous terms. But the residency, and correct me, this is the way I would kind of clarify it. One, I'd say, hey, it's one of the main ways we're going to invest in the leaders of tomorrow today. It's our main pipeline pathway to raise up future leaders in full-time ministry. But and then you guys can double click on this, and I'd love to hear just, how do you talk about the residency in just a minute or two or three? If you had your elevator pitch for it, what is it? Okay. But, it's a 2-year opportunity where people get to be ensconced in the life of our church. They get a theological education. They get ministry experience. They get just the whole getting to watch everything unfold. They get to be, we'll get into this, both shepherded and supervised. And then they have a clear off-ramp. Hey, in 2 years, we're going to help you figure out or find out whatever your next step is. Sometimes that's to realize, man, maybe I'm not called to full-time ministry. Other times it's maybe I'm called to full-time ministry, but in a different place, and we can get into all those options. But how would you guys, if you had to summarize the residency in a few minutes, what would you say?
Sure. Well, we say it's a seasoned development for a lifetime of ministry. You're right there about 2 years. It's a 2-year program. We talk about also like an open door into the life of the church, namely working for the church. A lot of times people have a desire for ministry, vocational ministry, and they're not sure where to go and how to get in. So we want to be an open door. And one of the phrases we use, you can talk about the ingredients here in a second, but one of the phrases we use is a slingshot. Like any slingshot, you maybe feel like you're being pulled backward, but you are being shot and slung into the future.
What an illustration. I like that a lot. Now, and we'll get to you, and either of you can answer this, why 2 years? Is this something that you saw other people do? What is it that you get out of 2 years that you wouldn't get out of one? Or why not do 3 years? Why 2 years?
I think the main practical and clear answer is that is how long it takes to get a Master's of Arts.
Yeah.
And that's
and then we build everything else around that.
It's a helpful parameters. This is what we're working with. We can fill it in. Now, granted, it's a full 2 years.
Yeah.
But we like doing it in 2.
Shelby, would you add anything?
I just one thing about 1 year is it takes approximately 6 months to even feel like you've got your feet
That's a
underneath
great point. Yep.
And then you only have 6 months left.
Yes.
And then in that time, if it's only a 1 year program, you're then thinking, well, I already need to be looking at what's coming next
Yes.
and like trying to find a job. So it's just not a full immersive experience. But with 2, people find their compass, get established, do meaningful work here, and then have a clear direction of where they're going after.
Let's talk about the life of a resident, okay? So we'll get into how to apply and all the details of that. But so say someone comes in, they've gone through all of our pipeline and process to be a resident, and it's August 1st, okay? I know that's when we start. So talk about just what's the onboarding process like? What does a resident's life look like?
You can talk, I guess, about onboarding process. We talk about the life and the culture of our program as being kind of 3 key ingredients: theology, leadership, and community. So for theology, a big part of what they do is their seminary time. Really, generally think Tuesdays. Tuesdays is seminary days. We mean master's level Bible and theological education in our church together.
Come on.
It's awesome.
I can tell how excited you are just as you say it. Say that again.
It's awesome. Give it to me.
Say it again. Let me close my eyes when you say it this time. Go ahead, say it.
The reason I say it and the reason I'm so excited is it is that all of those ingredients together are very unique.
No, I agree.
That we get to do master's level Bible and theological development together.
Come on.
In the church. Very rare.
Very rare.
Very cool. Theology, leadership is the next one. And that's going to be most of the other time. Most of the other time, they're being developed. Get to welcome into staff spaces and be developed with us, with our staff development. But the majority of that is in their ministry area, because every resident has a ministry area that they serve in, and that they are trained in and developed in. And the last one is community. The people that are involved in their life. We grow in community, and that's going to be maybe primarily the residency cohort. We've seen people come in from different walks of life, become really family.
Oh, yeah. There's 3 or 4 girls in this cohort that are living together.
That's right.
Like, they do everything together.
We got a couple of residency houses,
Yeah, maybe there's several. There was one at least I know of, yes.
And that's involved our relationship, Shelby and myself, with our cohort. That's the ministry leads, the people on staff that are serving them. We pair them with mentors within our church and just their community groups. I mean, you think about those concentric circles of community that's involved. But anyway, so those are the main ingredients of their life: theology, leadership, and character.
Yeah. I know you do so much of onboarding them, getting them ready, organizing so many of the events. Why don't you talk about a couple things that you are particularly excited about? When you bring in a new class, you're like, I know you do a retreat. I know you've done, not that you're going to do all these every year, I'm saying, but you've done a day at the farm. You've done just some fun getaways. You have a couple road trips. You have a whole first week. It's almost like you're, I don't know if this is the right illustration. You're a freshman in college again, and you've got that week or 2 of orientation. They're jumping in. They're meeting all the staff. I mean, talk about some of the fun things that you guys do at the beginning of residency.
Yeah. So onboarding is 2 weeks, because one of our main focus is you do have a ministry area focus, but when you want you to have total domain awareness. So it is like drinking from a water hose. We're bringing in speakers, Pastor Jordan talking about care, and then Stephen talking about ministry of presence, and really just trying to equip them of what does ministry look like within the local church. And one of those fun things is we also like to make it a camp experience.
Yeah.
So yes, we did a day out at the farm. It was we did Olympic style. One girl jumped in after a fish.
Oh, I heard that story.
That was, pretty brutal. But it was one of those things is about our residency program is like, we understand that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and we want you to make memories. So we really put a lot of emphasis on just having fun, and because we work so hard, we know we're asking a lot of their time and their talent. And so like, this is a reward. Yeah. So we just came back from our fall retreat, and just time of games, relaxation, and just this group is amazing. So just spending time together is just one of those special things that we want to take away and have moments of remembering where God has brought us, where he's taking us. And those retreats are really great moments to take a pause, to just reflect and also hear from the Lord of like, what has just happened and where is this leading to?
I love it. As you guys are talking, another thought came to my mind. So I'm thinking about the different residency classes we've had. I'm thinking about every resident that we've had. And obviously all different shapes and sizes, ages and all that. But in general, we tend to get a young, single person, often right out of college. Not always, I'm saying, but that would be the heart of who's been coming around. And so that is really energetic. That's exciting. That also means that a lot of times we're getting somebody and this is their first job. This is the first time they're living that's not on a college campus somewhere. Talk about the challenges of just leading, if you don't mind for a second, just leading a bunch of young people. I mean, I don't have a negative view toward young people. I'm saying I know they've got energy, they've got vision, they've got potential. But again, you're all the time. And you guys are going to continue to get older. And your residents are going to stay the same age. That's just what happens in life. And so what is it like? I'm sure it's very exciting. What are some of the joys and difficulties of being around such young people all the time?
One of my favorite development times we do during their onboarding, I'll title it Gen Z's the worst. I think it's hilarious.
Great. I love it.
I have a great time. I'd tell the
10 reasons you're the worst.
That's exactly right. I had to tell the next class that I was a joke. So they had permission to laugh kind of thing.
Yeah.
The first one took a little heavy-handed, but
yeah.
It was, all in good taste. But no, the point is what I'm trying to say is we try to identify things and hit them head on. It's like, hey, this is what people are saying about your generation.
So what are they? Give us a couple of them.
Screenagers.
Screenagers, yes.
They're on their phones all the time. Two, the whole quiet quitting thing. They're undisciplined and uncommitted.
Come on,
would be the second one. The third would be unprofessional. Show up with their sandals on, their long hair, their baggy jeans, and
no belt. Yeah,
no belt. Put on a belt. No, but it's great because it's not only an opportunity to address people in the room, but also people are going to do ministry too. Because really, who's the primary people Gen Z's ministering to? It's going to be people in their age bracket. So we would hit both and. All that said, what are the challenges? Well, the challenge is because oftentimes we get to have conversations, sometimes for the first time. Hey, if this is your first job, you're going to have first-time conversations about any number of things. And so we love that because, like we say, we want to give you a space to develop. And what does development entail? It entails reps and feedback. And so we want to give you a space so you can have reps and you can have clear and consistent feedback.
I love it.
So, hey, if you need feedback for what it looks like to scale up into, a full-time job, this is a place for it. If you need feedback, what it looks like to scale up into a full-time vocational ministry opportunity, here it is.
Yes.
Personal character, all those different things. Personality, all that stuff. We're here for it.
Yeah. Shelby, would you add anything? I know you especially are spending more time with, obviously, the younger ladies as well. Everybody, but yes.
But, I think it's fun, too, because you're in such a sweet season of life with them where, managing responsibilities of not just, work, but what does it look like to, now manage friendships? And I used to have all this free time, and now my time is being said by somebody else because I'm in a job and I'm trying. It's just a really special place to be walking alongside young people as they kind of become who they're going to be.
Yeah, love it. Yeah. Let's talk about, in regards to that, the kind of categories in my brain are shepherding and supervising. I don't know if that's exactly how you guys say it or break it apart, but I think about there's the shepherding component, which you guys both step into and are uniquely thinking about the resident, I would say, as a whole. How are you doing? How's your heart? How's the job going? How's your use of vacation? Whatever it might be. Just different things like that. And then they have a supervisor. And the supervisor, correct me if I'm wrong and clarify this, but the supervisor is going to be over their ministry area. So Stephen may in one area be the shepherd, and then in another area, Spencer, if they're on the college team, is their supervisor. Talk about that dynamic of shepherding and supervising. How does all that work together? When are they with you guys versus, and maybe in your responsibility? Is it just Tuesdays? And then when are they with their ministry area teams? And how does that relationship between shepherding and supervising work?
Yeah. So, the most clear cut would be there with us as a department, main Tuesdays. Now, Tuesdays is going to be when they're in my classroom and we are going through lecture material and whatever else together. Then they're on their own doing their seminary work. That'd be the main clear cut to where they're in their ministry areas throughout the week. Now, it gets less clean-cut in life and rhythms. Yeah. Namely, our doors are open most of the time. So pop-ins here and there. And you talk about shepherding the residents. What's fun is I get to shepherd the residents and their ministry leads.
Yes.
So it's both. Any sort of issue that happens in the life of the resident, I'm talking to them about it, and I'm talking to the supervisor about it.
Makes sense.
About how best to handle it. Let's look at both sides. So it's, if anybody's in that conversation, even if anybody in that situation where you're having conversations with both ends, we get to have those all the time.
Yes.
So it's fun being able to supervise and shepherd both.
Yes.
Both ends. So in some regards, it's clean cut where I'm not going to have direct impact in the life of a resident in their ministry area. However, with that being very much a part of their personal development, I'm engaged more behind the scenes.
Yep,
in
makes
those types
sense.
of conversations.
Shelby, another category that I think through. So I think shepherd. I've got 3 of them for you. Okay, I think of shepherd and supervise. The second one is it's like a sermon. Is do versus development. So there's not that when you're not developed by doing, and your doing isn't enhanced by your development. I know it's a yin yang kind of thing, but what I mean is, like, how do you guys think about that? Like, how do you think about the resident in how am I developing them? Because on one level, if we could kind of think of extremes, there could be the completely developmental residency.
Sure.
And it's like, you're not getting your master's, you're getting your, something else. I don't know. It's just, there's so much, it's all academic, it's all theological, it's all book heavy. Or there's very little required of you to actually do. You're just going to be a recipient of so much.
Yeah.
And then there's the other resident where it's like, we've hired you and we're not investing in you as much with seminary or other things like that, but we view you almost more like a staff person fully, and you're on a ministry team only, and you're doing. So how do you live in that tension? How do you guys schedule for that? I mean, of course, we've already talked about the Tuesday thing, but how do you think about that tension?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something you're always navigating, and one of the ways is to right up front and repeat is this is a developmental program.
Yep.
They are not staff to prevent from going to the complete side of doing.
Yes.
But then also to not go into the complete other side, we see people as holistic people. So that means that what you're learning in theology is going to impact what you're doing. That's why we've designed our program the way it is. And that's why we're trying to raise up ministry vocation in order to be able to, there's been a lot of talented people who go in and get leadership positions and then find themselves that they're very weak in theology and find themselves and then burn out and then questioning and deconstructing their faith. That's a trend we're seeing all around. So it's
good point.
We want to challenge that tension is like, because this is the only way to longevity in ministry. So one of the things is just we talk about it a lot and we tackle it head on.
Yeah. I would say 2 things to that. Number one, you brought up that even churches, we can use the same word residence or residency mean a whole bunch of different things. Even within our own collaborative, Summit Collaborative, that different churches have residency programs that are different than ours. And so we have to be very clear to identify what our program's about, be clear to say it at the beginning, and to work with the ministry leads on it. Because we want our ministry leads to know that they are to develop their residents. And that means having a very clear 2-year pipeline, a leadership development pipeline. Hey, these are the mile markers we want your specific resident to hit in your ministry area over these 2 years. They're not entry-level employees. They're not your gopher. They're not your intern. They're not whatever else. Here's the process to kind of raise them up and develop them up so that at the end of it, we want to be able to pick up the phone, and call a church and say, hey, this resident can lead in the ministry area.
I love it. Love it. Okay, third category. So there's do and development. There's shepherd and supervising. You kind of hit on it. And then there's staff versus resident. And they're not staff, that's clear. How is a resident different than a staff person? We've hit on it, but let's just talk about that, because that's something we've had to even clarify. I just know behind the scenes of class 1 versus class 2. How do we, expectation-wise, schedule-wise, rooms, environments? How would you guys explain that? How is a resident different than a staff person?
Yeah, I think one is the weight of responsibility is one thing. Because in the end, if something happens, it is the ministry lead who is going to be the one seen in responsibility for that. So that's one factor. But then also just what you hit on with like the fun things. To be a resident means you get to be a part of like retreats and things like that are we've created these milestone markers that it's solely for the residency, that is not for a staff member. And that's the reverse for staff as well. We have Team Sync that is solely for staff that we're talking about different things. And then the residents.
Our staff retreat.
Staff retreat.
Yes.
So those are, I think, the certain rooms which you're talking about, or those clear defined lines. Yeah, that's always a tension, but also to. Yeah, Stephen, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I'll say that we love having the blessing of residents that are not on staff, because that gives us freedom and flexibility.
Yeah.
To say, but
they're
also
in a category all by themselves.
Also, hey, residents, like we talked earlier, we're going doing Hillbilly Olympics on Thursday because we need this time for our development. But no staff gets to go. That's right. We get to go.
Yep.
But the rub or the friction, we love. We love the rub, because the rub, the other side of it is, say like a prayer night, worship and prayer night's coming up. It's difficult to get kids, volunteers, worship and prayer night, because our staff want to be worshiping and praying and kind of serving, facilitating that way. Our families would be in there. And so guess what the residency gets to do? We get to run toward the fire, baby.
I love it. We
love
get
it.
to. We don't have to.
No,
we get to. Come on, look at that culture.
Our ministry serves a mission, and we're happy to step into that space. It's like, but staff members don't. We're not staff.
Yep.
We're a development program,
Yep,
and this is a great way for us to develop as individuals. A great way to serve the mission of the church.
Yes. All right, let's talk about theological education in more depth. So we've got a deep partnership with Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary, which I'm just going to go on the record and say they have the best mission statement ever. I mean, to get it down, I know how hard it is to simplify things. To simplify things to a statement, no. To a word,
That's
no.
right.
To a one-syllable word that is 2 letters. I mean, everything around that seminary is go. So we love it. Obviously, you're a product of Southeastern as well as Southern Seminary. Okay. But talk to us about what is our partnership. And we're going to get a little nerdy just for a few minutes, but some people might care about this. What does our partnership look like with this seminary? We have a unique partnership. We don't have to nerd out too much, but you can get, like, we do something, and I'll let you explain it, but we do something with Southeastern that very few churches in the nation get to do. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so they're kind of scales. So a lot of church to seminary partnerships, and this is a simplistic thing, but we're going to hit it, have kind of a scaled relationship.
Yes.
So if you want to say the first level would be something that there are churches with partnerships where their students will be viewing online lectures from the seminary.
Yes.
So there'll be online students enrolled, they'll get discussion forums, and they'll be able to watch lectures, etc. Great. The next level up would be potential partnerships where these students could kind of, where they may be able to send a faculty person from Southeastern to come and be able to have the class that way. One of the blessings we get to have is I think the official designation is an Equip Center. Namely, we're an officially recognized Equip Center of Southeastern, which means that our students technically in the eyes of the school are on-campus students at Southeastern. So which means that the learning environments, the classes they're a part of, are recognized as on-campus classes at Southeastern that we get to house at Two Cities Church. So that means that there's not a priority on online learning. There's some lectures that need to be viewed, some we assign, etc. Nor is it primarily we're trying to fly or bring in external professors, though that happens at occasion. The majority of the class experience is going to be our program leading through the content, leading through the entire master's program.
Yeah. Shelby, talk to us a little bit about, we have this amazing residency. I mean, guys, we're just talking about it. I mean, I know that everybody's listening and saying, how can I? I'm ready to quit my job. I'm ready to
They've
sell
already
the house.
quit.
Yeah, they've already quit.
They're typing the
I'm getting texts
right now.
I'm
That's
getting
right.
yes. No, but like, how do we find these residents? So I'll kind of tell you the beginning story, and Shelby, I'd love you to dive into this. I know early on I can remember calling Nathan Milson, our first resident ever. I believe he was working the front desk at a dermatologist's office. And I knew he had aspirations for ministry, and I had a phone call with him. I mean, this is whenever it was, 2018, 2019. Hey, would you consider doing this? Comes on now, is doing so many things for us. Full-time on staff, went through a residency. And then I know there's a season where, we were more getting, the first time we kind of put it out there, we're getting a lot of people in our church. I didn't know that, that's great. Or we're getting one relationship away. I got to tell my niece about this, that kind of thing. That was maybe year 2 and year 3. As we're getting more sophisticated, I don't know what you want to say, as we're having more opportunities, as maybe our church is becoming a little bit more well-known, how are we finding these residents? I mean, we hope that people will be listening to the podcast today, be interested, but we're not depending on this podcast to find the residents. How are we finding this new class, and what does that look like?
Yeah, each year it's something different. I will still say that the stickiest people is what I would call them is from internal. And what I mean by that is they already know Two Cities. They already know the culture and who we are and what we're doing, and have even witnessed what the residency is. So that is still a big place where that comes from. But more too is we have great partnerships, and our name is out that our residency is established. And I'll admit the big selling factor is how we're doing theological training. Stephen hit the point. We have a lot of residencies out there and they're doing wonderful things, but each one's different. So we get forwarded a lot of people who are interested in ministry who are seeking to continue their theological training as well. So that'll be from Liberty, that is from other connections within the Summit Collaborative as well. So those are the different kind of pools of the people that we're getting. And then also one of our big hopes too is people who are leaving the workforce because they're getting the Lord's put on their heart that it's time to go in vocational ministry. And what Stephen hit, where do I even begin? How do I develop in this? So we're seeing a larger wave of older applicants who have been established jobs and are leaving and now beginning to just wonder, like, how does this start? And so we're having conversations with them.
Great. And I want to return to that because that's an important moving from the marketplace to full-time vocational ministry. But as we think about this residency and all of the people that are coming in, how do we decide how many people we can have? I mean, how does that work? We've had different numbers. I mean, I can't even remember every number. 3, 10, 7, 4, 14. I mean, it's been a lot, And then it's a rotating door because people leave. I mean, is there, as you guys think about this and you think about like what you're trying to do, like because I think about a private school. A private school always says, hey, here's one of the best things about being a private school. There's a low class ratio. There's the deep investment. At the same time, we want to make this big of impact as we can. There's always that tension between deep and wide. Another tension and there it is, the fourth one. It just came out. Deep and wide. How do y'all think about who to have in the residency?
Here we go. You ready for this one?
Yeah.
We don't have a seating capacity.
Ooh.
We have a shepherding capacity.
Come on.
Tweet that.
There it is, dude. I just tweeted it. Yes.
No, but that is our prayer point. It's like by the grace of God, if we just flung the doors open, maybe we'd get bigger and bigger and bigger. Have 100 people, 150. What's stopping us? But it really is shepherding primarily from not just from me and from our office, but that it starts there. That if I'm not able to, stand before the living God and give an account on how each individual resident is doing.
I just saw how theological you got with your job there, dude.
I mean,
there
legit though.
I love it.
I mean, I feel like my call now. I joke with them that I used to be a pastor. Now I just lead a residency. But what I mean by that is, I'm telling them I feel called by God to one of the closest concentric circles that I pastor in my residence. And so if I don't know where they are, if I don't know what they're going through, if I don't know their personal gifts, strengths, struggles, etc., then there's too many.
Yeah.
And so it starts there, and it starts then with the ministry areas. How many residents can a ministry area equip shepherding wise? Because again, this is develop, not do. We can just bring people in to do work all the time.
Yep.
But how are we going to be able to train these people, develop them, scale them up into the ministry area, invest in them, pour out time? So it is a shepherding capacity also in the ministry area. But that's it. I mean, our goal is not to get as big as we can. Our goal is to be able to shepherd as many people as we can.
Is there a number? In the sense, I'm not going to put you on the spot forever. But do you feel like, man, that a kind of a class of, I'm guessing each class maybe less than 15 if I'm going to really get my hands around them?
Yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, so this right now, our program is the largest it's been together. So right now we have 2 years, kind of rotating entrance. So with our 2-year cohorts right now, we're at 21. Woo. Like, we can do this.
Yeah, you can do it. You're doing it.
It was a stretch, but we can do it.
Let's go back because there's so many things I want to make sure we hit on, and we don't have a ton of time left. I think that another point about the development that I think is so important in the theological education that's so important is as you're trying to recruit people out of colleges who, understandably, their parents are like, "What are you doing?" I think the point to say, "Hey, I'm not just going," which would be fine. I'm not just going to raise support to work for a church or something. During this time, I'm going to get a master's degree. I mean, I think that's just massive. I wish, I'm not just saying this, I really wish there was something. I mean, I'm not that old, but I guess I graduated from college 18 years ago. Yeah. So when I graduated, I did not know, there was nothing like this. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, we don't have time to get into a whole history of residencies, but it's one of those things where I'm like, for me, it was, you're going to be a youth pastor. Yep. You're going to be a college pastor. Yep. Maybe you could find out how to be a campus pastor or something, but there was no, and I'm even particularly talking babies, men. That's another thing. How many women we have going through this? I think I won't put you on the spot off the top of your head to give me the exact number, but there are more women right now in our residency than men. Yeah, correct. That's correct. Are there areas, as we're just talking about this, that you're like, man, this is a ministry area that we've never had a resident in? Because what's been exciting is as we've talked about all these areas. This year, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was like 4 new areas got a resident. Kids got their first resident. Care got their first resident. Production got their first resident. I'm missing one, but 3 of them I can remember.
Sure.
Is there an area that you're like, if someone's listening or someone gets past this, is there an area where like, man, particularly like, man, is someone have a passion for this area? Because I'm guessing at some point someone might be the right fit, but it's like, we don't need a 4th missions resident right now.
Yeah.
You know, kind
Sorry,
of thing.
Pastor Spencer.
Yeah. Would you guys, how would you answer that?
There are kind of 2 that are on the top of our chart right now. Number one of those other ministry areas we have our first this year is in pastoral, our first pastoral resident. And we are praying and pursuing and getting applicants in a pastoral residency. We want that to be bread and butter kind of thing.
Yes.
The second is worship. We have an excellent worship team that is so ready and equipped to shepherd a worship leader, and that's a big prayer point for us.
That's great. How will the pastoral residency be different?
It's going to be different because it has. The first year, I'll just do this way. So it's a 2-year program. Pastoral will be the first year. They're getting to shadow and serve in almost every ministry area of our church, because we want total domain awareness. If you're going to go out and be a lead pastor, if you're going to go out and be a campus pastor, if you're going to go out being a church planner, if you're going to go out, all those things, you need to have total domain awareness. So the first year, it's going to be shadowing and serving in every ministry area of our church. The second year, it is going deep into our care pathways through our community groups. With scaling up into pastoral development and training.
I love it. Very good. Okay, let's talk as we end a couple things. I want to first talk about moving from the marketplace to full-time vocational ministry, a passion of mine. In a story in our church. Whether it was I just had Ryan Dula on here a few weeks ago, getting to hear his story about how he moved from the marketplace. And as I think about so many people on our staff, I mean, I don't want to just start naming names, but so many people have had that journey with us. We're trying to ask the question, how do we continue to help people? And it doesn't have to necessarily be come on staff with us, but how do we help a makeup person, a 34-year-old person, and they have a family, and they feel called, and they're going, how do I do this at not quite midlife, but how do I do this now? What are some things we're putting together as we're trying to move the needle in that area?
So now we're talking about our wider department, namely leadership
development. So if we could just
development.
transition for just a moment, yes.
Because residency truly is still on the table. And like Shelby had said, we have had applicants come in at different stages of life. They're not just college grads. I mean, we do have that as an opportunity. But we're building out 2 different pathways right now that we think are complementary. We think are going to work together in this way. The first one we're doing is we're calling it the apprenticeship. And that is a lay leader development pathway in our church designed for people who actually work like normal jobs.
Yep.
We meet early in the morning on Sundays, and what we do is we put together a year-long, again, the same ingredients, a theology curriculum, work in the ministry areas to scale them up in the leadership opportunities where they're serving in the church. And then finally, kind of trying to build as we can community within that cohort for the year. So that would be, it's not accredited, it's not a master's program, et cetera, but still it is a meaningful discipleship program for lay leaders. And second, Lord willing, launching this fall, we're going to call the fellowship program. And this is going to be an opportunity really with the bullseye on people transitioning out of the marketplace, to have an opportunity for them to come in and be able to be, in some sense, developed, and we're kind of using the finishing school kind of language, a finishing school for pastors. That if guys come in, maybe if you want to say with the capacity and with character and with the calling.
There you go. Give me some more C's.
We need to find a C.
The chemistry.
We need to find a C for experience, whatever C that would be.
Yeah.
And they lack the experience.
Yes.
Hey, we can give it to you here. And launch you into vocational ministry. So that would be this fall, a brand new pathway, brand new pipeline we're going to open up.
Well, maybe we'll have to have you guys back to talk about that. But I know I got us off topic by expanding us into leadership development and some future things. So let's go back to the residency as we close. Shelby, what are people's next step? They're listening to this podcast. They've got a friend, a daughter, a son, I don't know, a nephew, and man, I think he'd be great. And how do people begin to even take their next step to even consider if the residency would be for them? Is there, and give us as well, like, are there certain dates? Because I know everything kind of, if we reverse engineer it from, well, it starts August 1st. How do we think about that?
Yeah. So first step is just going to the website and filling out an interest form.
The website is
2citieschurch.net, right?
But I'm saying yes. I mean, like, do they? But they're going to find the resident. Is it
go to opportunities?
Opportunities,
and
that's
then
what I was
there's a
trying to
summer
get at.
internship,
Okay.
and then residency. So that's
Thank
what you're going to click,
Okay.
and you hit, and it's going to say apply. That's the interest form. From there, you fill out a little bit of information and sit down with a conversation with me over the phone. hearing about just like the stir and that conversation. It's not an interview or anything, but it's we pray throughout the entire cycle is that there's clarity from us and you about, is this the right step or not? And usually from that conversation is a clearer picture of a direction to go in residency than not just talking about an interest.
Yes.
From there, actually applying, and then an interview, and then hearing back, and now dates. So we have an early deadline. So if people get their applications filled out by October 15th,
so that's coming up.
It's coming up. So October 15th, that's our early bird deadline, and you'll get your interview within November. And then the last date that can possibly accept applications is January 20th.
Okay. So get through Christmas if you have to.
That's
but,
right.
But,
Get
but
it
come
in.
on. But you don't even have till President's Day. I'm trying to give us some kind of marker. You've got to get in here. Okay, very good. And then I know by the time this comes out, our preview day is going to be over. We're going to have about 13 residents, which we're very excited. These are people who are some are in our church, some are visiting. They're interested enough to come join us for a Sunday and Monday. I'm excited to meet them, talk to them. Is there any other things like that are coming up before we get to the next class?
Yeah, Lord willing, we're thinking to have another one in the spring.
Okay.
So likely just on the other side of the new year.
And you guys will be doing maybe one with a couple last things. Are you going to any other places to recruit?
Yeah, so we'll be going to the ministry fair at Liberty University.
Okay.
So that's our main place that we go.
That'll be the main place we go, physically. We have, social media and whatever else we're doing, targeting
Of
places.
course. Okay, here's where we'll end. Guys, tell me what you're excited about in regards to the future. Because I have said, and I really believe this, I said this when we first hired you, Stephen, when we do not despise the day of small things, okay, to misquote scripture, I think I'm taking that verse out of context. But what I mean is, like, I knew that I felt like when it was even a few people, when you first started, we had our first class, or now our second class when Shelby came in, I genuinely did feel, I'm like, man, I think this is something that I'm going to look back on in 15, 20 years. And though it may not appear this way right this second, it's going to be one of the most significant things that we have done in raising up future leaders for our church and the future church, missionaries, developing. And then I would always say on a very personal note, I always say that residents are to the staff what college students are to the church. They just bring a new life, a new energy. They make everybody better. They ask all the questions everyone else is afraid to ask. They challenge things in good way. I mean, all of that. So. But I'm excited when I think about this. I'm excited about the different pipelines that we talked about just briefly that we'll have to have you guys back on to talk more about at some point. But tell me what the one or two things as we close that you guys are most excited about as you look to the future of our residency.
Yeah, I'd say having the same and then, Lord willing, building out other, but having those groups. So is it centripetal and centrifugal, whichever one, but bring people together. Having those unique cohorts every cycle, it's just something special happens whenever you are running hard after the Lord in an intense season of development together.
I love it.
We're talking about lifelong friendships that are being forged in development spaces. Love that, number one. Then number two, being able to just sling that group out.
The slingshot analogy.
I'm telling you, a resident from, I think last year I think it was my birthday, they got me a map, right, with little pins. So I can put on the map where our residents go. And there are a couple pins on that map. I want that darn map filled with pins. That's right. Sling it out, baby.
Every person in every place. Let's go. How about you?
I think just the wave of more interest in pastoral ministry. We all know that there's like a leadership crisis within the church. And it's just being a part of a residency program that it's flourishing, being a part of that can change within our lifetime. That could be something that we're not talking about anymore because it's changed. And so that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you. In the midst of all of the residents that you guys are shepherding and all of the new residents, I mean, you guys have a hard job. You are both caring for both classes, transitioning a class eventually out into the world. You're caring for a brand new class. You're recruiting the next class. You guys have very busy schedules, very difficult jobs, very full lives. Thank you guys for being here. If you're listening online or watching this, I want you to go to our website. If you are interested in our residency or you know someone who does, go to the opportunities link, click it, and this really is how we invest in the leaders of tomorrow, today, and I'll see you next week.